Donnie and Dolly, the team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Tuesday, and all of our guests today are brought to you by the Waddling Dog Pub, one of Victoria's favorite local watering holes located 10 minutes from the ferry terminal. The Waddling Dog Pub is the place to be for great food, cold drinks, and all summer sports action. With their dog-friendly patio, a new summer menu, and music poker Saturdays, everyone is welcome at the Waddling Dog Pub. Don't miss their fully stocked liquor store and, Rick, 30-room boutique hotel attached. There are countless reasons to come, sit, and stay at the Waddling Dog. Again, in case you missed it, the hit on Jeremiah Masoli over the weekend by Garrett Marino, just awful to watch. The aftermath was disgusting. And I'm not talking just about Masoli getting carted off the field, ending up with surgery, but Marino's act afterwards, the taunting and all of that, flexing, it was just horrible. Here to talk about that and other matters, CFL and NHL, Farhan Lalji from TSN. How are you, sir?
I'm good, fellas. How are you guys doing? I heard this is our last show together until September. I'm heartbroken.
Well, until September. You will be back, and so will we, hopefully. But let's make it a good one. 4-game suspension is that enough, Farhan?
I don't know. My gut says no. When I look at the totality of the incident, right? It wasn't just a hit on Jeremiah Masoli. There was a hit 2 plays earlier. There was the celebration afterwards. There were the comments in the piles. There was the stuff before the game, the night before. There was, there was a lot of stuff. The history of this player over the course of just 12 CFL games, everything I've heard about him beyond that, all of that taken into context. You can't isolate this to one incident. It's all of it, right? So I think this is a player with a lot of baggage and a lot of challenges, and I think he poses a danger to other players in the CFL. Certainly the quarterback fraternity is up in arms at how light the suspension was. But then on the other side of it, you've got a precedent-setting decision, right? I mean, this is double what any penalty has been for an on-field incident previously. I mean, we've never seen more than 2 games, so the league got a little bit creative in terms of how they decided to penalize him and made it 4. And then as far as the comments are concerned, I can't sit here and say he was or wasn't racist in all of this. Something inappropriate was certainly said. Depending on what was said, if it was in fact the level of racism, then it should be much longer. And then if it wasn't, then it was something a little bit different. Then it's like I said, it's interesting the way they pieced it all together, and we'll see whether or not there's any kind of an appeal, because the way they did it, 2 games, 1 game, and 1 game, was designed to prevent an appeal, but it also puts Marino in a position to potentially choose to appeal one of the 3 actions. So I don't think the book is written on this quite yet.
Yeah, you say 4 games, or the CFL tells us the 4 games is the longest suspension for on-field behavior. But once you get into racist comments, Farhan, does that not take it off the field, even if it happened on the field, if you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and again, it's difficult because you've got to know what was said, but if it was blatant and obvious racism, then it should be worse. You look at what the league did with John Murphy, the executive for the Toronto Argos, and he said something in the heat of the battle. It wasn't in the field of play, but it was certainly around a CFL event, and he got suspended indefinitely. For a minimum of a year, from practical terms, right? And we'll see if he gets back in the league. But the PA is not there to defend him, right? So the league doesn't have to factor that in. But, here's what I've learned in all of this, right? So remember last year when we had the hockey incident in the East Coast League involving Jacob Panetta and Jordan Subban, right? And the flex episode after the fight with Panetta, and Subban took it as a racist act, and Panetta didn't view it as a racist act. He's like, look, this is a Tom Wilson thing. I do this all the time. But you're not necessarily doing it to a person of color. So I don't think your intent always matters. I think you have to own how that person is impacted, and their own personal context determines how they're impacted, right? So bottom line is that, while I don't believe Jacob Panetta was attempting to act racist, he has to own the comments, right? Because he doesn't know how Jordan Subban is going to take it, but ultimately he's responsible for that. And that could be the same case here, whether it was blatant racism or not. Garrett Marino's got to take full accountability for not only what was said, but how Jeremiah took it.
Farhan, on the field now, in terms of pure football, Lions get dumped by Winnipeg. There was a lot of build up to that game. Lions didn't live up to expectations, certainly not at the start. What do you think they learned, and how do you think they respond going forward?
Well, number one, don't poke the bear, right? So number one, when Marcus Sales talks about Winnipeg having a vanilla offense, truthfully, I thought they did too. I've had people being critical of me because, or not me, but critical of the point spreads, that how could a team that's won the last two Grey Cups and basically been 22-1 in meaningful games with Zach Caleros, how could they possibly be an underdog? But I bought it and I picked BC to win. And I say that because both teams had soft schedules. The Lions looked great, and Winnipeg didn't. And you just compare the two Toronto games. Winnipeg got lucky to beat Toronto, and BC blew them out, right? So I get why it happened, and I don't know that the Lions took their foot off the gas or took it for granted or got ahead of themselves or anything like that. I don't know how you would do that, but you certainly see what Winnipeg is capable of when they're fully dialed in, and getting a chance to play a good team like the Lions dialed them in. Everyone's going to make a lot about Nathan Rourke. I don't think Nathan was horrible in that game. To be truthful, I was grossly disappointed in the special teams, like the coverage teams. The fact that Jannarian Grant's a good kick returner, but you gave up almost two, and then you had to pooch kick twice and give up the ball at midfield because you just didn't believe you could cover it. I thought that was awful. And their defense gave me probably more concern than Nathan Rourke did. So, but I still believe in the talent. We'll see what happens with Bola Combo, right? Because I'm led to believe he's going to miss at least one game, and they're still waiting for additional results. It could be more. Roster is built around two starting Canadians, so that'll be additional adversity going forward. So, hopefully it opened up their eyes as to just how difficult this is. The turnaround's not going to come quick.
Well, what's not coming quick is the JT Miller trade. Farhan, the deadline, the draft. Where are we now? We're heading into the off season, into August around the corner. Still no Miller trade.
Yeah, and closer than I do in terms of where this is headed, and certainly we're all led to believe that teams are still interested in JT Miller, and I think the club is hoping that maybe before free agency or a day or two after, when teams try to make their moves and improvements, and they realize maybe they couldn't do what they want, they circle back on Miller with more aggressiveness. But Rick, in my opinion, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I think every day that goes here, the club loses leverage, because if you try to go into a season with JT Miller signed, JT Miller's not getting 120 points, right? He got 99 points, and so his best case is he matches that. I don't know that he's going to be a 115, 120 point player again. So his value's at an all-time high. The only thing that can happen is he could play worse, he could play injured, he could be distracted, he could be disgruntled because he wanted some clarity as well. And now you put him into that setting, and let's say he plays worse, or let's say he gets injured, you lose leverage, or you all of a sudden get into a situation at next year's trade deadline where you're right on the cusp of the playoffs, and the ownership wants the playoff revenue, and he doesn't want you to trade him, and then he walks, right? So I just think that if you don't have clarity as a club, you can't make the improvements you want to make in free agency. The team has said they do want to get better. They're not willing to just concede the playoffs next year. So every day this goes, I think the player gains a little bit of leverage and the club loses leverage.
Well, they got some money freed up for free agency tomorrow. I believe they can now go after a little bit of a player with a pretty good player here, and they can add a top 9 forward because of the Lammikko and Highmore money yesterday. So they're not going to go after the big names tomorrow, Farhan, but I do believe they'll get a couple of signings done tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I'm sure they will. And when they get rid of Lammikko and Highmore, it tells you they're nibbling around the edges. And when you look at what their needs are up front, it depends on Miller, right? If you lose Miller, you need a third-line center, preferably a right-shot guy. You keep Miller, you want to improve your top 6 forwards. Right now, the left wing is Kuzmenko and Pearson, right? And, are either one of those first-line guys coming out of the gate? Probably not. So, you want to improve there. So you have to be careful, right? Because it was about $5.2 million with Miller on the roster and projecting Highmore and Lammikko getting done. So now without them, you're probably closer to $7 million, and that includes the Michael Furlan number. But you can't give somebody too much term because you've also got to get Bo Horvat done, and then you're 2 years away from having to get Elias Pettersson off the bridge deal, right? Yeah. So it's a tough dance for them that you want to improve it. On the surface, it looks like you've got money, but deep down, you might not, right? So I don't know how much significantly better they could get without a meaningful move involving a player like Miller or Garland or Myers or whomever, right?
Yeah.
All right, Farhan, this is it for us. Have a great summer, my friend. It's been a pleasure as always. You've been with us for 2 campaigns now. We appreciate it.
Hey, so I know that the kid over there, Henderson's having a kid. So congratulations to Ryan and Kelsey.
Mm-hmm.
I hope Ryan, you're a better father than you are a producer.
Oh,
and
wow.
We know that, and I'm sure you're going to be. I know that Ricky's going to Hawaii because he's got plenty of clothing for a Hawaii trip. Donnie, where are you going?
I'm staying home. I have no money.
Cheapest man in television. Cheapest man in television.
My reputation, well deserved. Absolutely.
Oh.
I've got some projects I need to do. Yeah. We'll talk.
See you guys.
All right. Farhan Lalji, TSN.